Most people imagine evidence being destroyed, intentionally burned, hidden, or erased by criminals. We picture a sinister plot to cover up a crime. But in reality, the most dangerous threat to evidence is not malice, but mistakes. This is Human Error, Episode 2. Evidence contamination is one of the leading reasons major cases collapse, especially murder cases. Not because the evidence was absent, but because it was altered, compromised, or rendered completely unreliable. We are talking about the subtle, often accidental actions that permanently damage the truth. In this episode, we examine how evidence becomes contaminated, why it happens so frequently, and how small human errors can permanently destroy a legal case. The evidence rarely disappears entirely. More often, it simply gets touched. So, what exactly is evidence contamination? In simple terms, it occurs when foreign material is introduced to a crime scene or to an item of evidence, altering its original, pristine state. Contamination takes many forms. It could be transferring DNA from one surface to an unrelated one, mixing biological samples together, disturbing fragile blood stain patterns, or introducing foreign fibers, hairs, or fingerprints from personnel who shouldn't be there. Once contamination occurs, it is often impossible for the court or for scientists to definitively determine what was original to the crime and what was introduced later. This is crucial because forensics relies entirely on context. A fiber or a drop of blood is meaningless unless we know exactly when and how it got there. Contamination destroys that context, transforming crucial data into useless noise. The unfortunate truth is that the most common source of contamination isn't nature or the weather, though those are factors. The most frequent cause of evidence contamination is our own behavior, human error. Think about the rush of a first responder arriving at a violent scene. Their primary goal is preserving life, but in that urgency, they might enter without the required protective gear. Investigators, focused on finding items, might touch multiple surfaces with the same pair of gloves. Unnecessary movement, or allowing unauthorized personnel like curious onlookers, senior officers, or even political figures to wander through the scene, all dramatically increase the contamination risk. These actions are almost never malicious. They are often driven by urgency, curiosity, fatigue after a long shift, or simply a lack of rigorous training. But in the world of forensics, good intentions and eagerness can still ruin a case just as effectively as a deliberate attempt at destruction. A particularly insidious type of contamination is cross-contamination. This is when material from one source transfers directly to another. The classic scenario is an investigator handling two different items from the scene. They package item A, which contains the victim's blood. Then, using the same unchanged gloves, they touch item B, which belonged to the suspect. Now, item B contains the victim's blood, but not because the suspect touched the victim, it's because the investigator touched them both. This can happen with gloves, tools, evidence packaging, or even just storage. If evidence from two different cases is stored too closely together, there's a risk of material transfer. Cross-contamination creates false connections between people, objects, or locations. It can falsely implicate innocent individuals, leading to miscarriages of justice, or, conversely, protect guilty ones by clouding the real evidence beyond individual mistakes. Poor crime scene control represents a massive failure point that dramatically increases contamination risk. A crime scene is not just a room, it's a temporary boundary that must be flawlessly secured. Failures here include weak or shifting perimeters, which allow unauthorized access, or incomplete entry logs, meaning nobody knows who was actually inside the boundary and when. A major risk factor occurs when the same team or personnel handle multiple related scenes without properly decontaminating themselves in between, say, moving from the site of a body to the suspect's car. Outside forces like weather, rain washing away samples, or animals' pets or scavengers disturbing remains, or the general public all introduce contamination if the scene isn't secured quickly, effectively, and professionally. The moment that perimeter is set, everything outside it is a potential contaminant. Moving past the initial securing phase, errors made during the physical collection of evidence are perhaps the most damaging. This is the point of no return. Using the same pair of gloves for multiple different items is a common and easily avoided mistake. Improper packaging is another huge issue. For instance, biological evidence, like damp clothing or bloody swabs, must be packaged in breathable paper containers, not sealed in plastic. If wet biological evidence is sealed in plastic, moisture retention promotes mold and bacterial growth, destroying the precious DNA samples inside. Failing to label evidence accurately, or allowing collected evidence to contact other surfaces outside of its sterile packaging, also compromises it. The key principle here is that evidence must be preserved, not just recovered. Once evidence is collected incorrectly, it may still physically exist, but it may no longer be usable in court because its integrity has been irrevocably compromised. And contamination doesn't even stop at the crime scene. It follows the evidence right into the laboratory. Lab contamination is a massive concern because it involves the most sensitive analytical tools. This can happen through the improper cleaning of instruments between samples, sample mix-ups due to human error, or analysts handling multiple cases simultaneously without adequate precautions. Lab contamination is especially damaging because laboratory results carry significant scientific authority and weight in court. If the process is flawed, the scientific truth is flawed. Science does not eliminate error in many ways. It magnifies it, making tiny flaws appear as definitive facts. So, why does contaminated evidence destroy cases? In court, evidence that has been touched, moved, or improperly handled introduces what lawyers call reasonable doubt. The defense team does not need to prove who the real killer is, or even what truly happened. They only need to prove that the evidence presented by the prosecution cannot be trusted, usually by demonstrating that the chain of custody was broken, or that the sample was potentially compromised. Once that doubt exists, and the science itself is questioned, even strong cases built on otherwise solid circumstantial evidence can fall apart completely. Unreliable evidence is truly worse than having no evidence at all. Preventing contamination requires incredible discipline, rigorous training, and professional restraint. In most cases, the contamination isn't caused by a lack of advanced technology. It's caused by a lack of meticulous, controlled procedure. The truth is fragile, and the integrity of a case rests on the integrity of the evidence. And once compromised, that evidence can never truly be restored. The evidence didn't fail. We did. Thank you for watching History of Criminology. If you want to learn more about the complexities of forensic science, please like this video and subscribe for more episodes.